We ate Christmas dinner a day early, expecting an attack at any time. However, nothing happened until New Year's Eve, when the South Korean regiment on the division's right was attacked, and the Chinese got behind us, and we once again had to retreat towards Seoul. One cold day, as we pulled into a field, we were told, "No fires, stay ready to pull out," because the Chinese had mounted cavalry and were reported to be in our vicinity. Our battalion commander told us we were to maintain radio silence until notified. The evening came, and it had been real quiet all around us. No firing at all. After a long wait, the battalion told him that they, or someone, had forgotten to notify us to move, and that now we were 8 to 10 miles behind the United Nations lines. We had to move immediately to the south. After a quick conference, the commander gave the order to march. We drove with lights blacked out to avoid the enemy, and we stayed close together. My truck, with a .30 caliber machine gun in the back, brought up the rear. We hadn't gone more than a mile when the truck and howitzer in front of us stopped, and a sergeant came running back to say that they had lost the rest of the vehicles, and they were at a Y in the road, and did I know which way to go? I did not, but we went to the Y, and I had the driver turn on his driving lights so we could see the tracks, and determined that the road to the right was the one to follow. I told him to keep his lights on and go as fast as the road permitted until he caught up with the convoy. We were never fired on. It was midnight or so when we caught up with A Battery and resumed driving blackout. The convoy was just entering Seoul, and the entire city appeared to be on fire. Power lines were down, and poles and debris blocked the streets. The Wolfhounds had been designated rear guard to cover the retreat out of Seoul and then across the Han River. We crossed the river on a platoon bridge the engineers had built. They destroyed it shortly thereafter. Many believed we, A Battery, were the last unit to cross the river. This was the first week in January 1951. The 25th Division now became part of an offensive to retake the land lost. The 8th Army's forward artillery was somewhere near Suwon, south of the Han River, where the Chinese and North Koreans had planted landmines. The mines were about the size of a cigar box, made of wood with a metal detonator. When exploded, they would destroy a jeep or blow a track off a tank. On one of our moves to a new location, the jeep in front of my truck turned left into our new area and almost immediately hit a mine that lifted it, its trailer, and occupants into the air several feet, injuring 3. Shrapnel hit my vehicle, but no injuries. After that, we would put a man out in front of a vehicle to guide it in and check the path for mines. In January 1951, a division policy of sending men to Japan for 5 days of rest and relaxation was started, and 2 or 3 men from each unit would be selected. When they returned, another bunch would go. My good friend Jack Brown and I were among the first in the battery to go. We boarded a C-47 in combat gear, mud and all, and flew to Japan. On arrival, we were first served a meal, the first sit-down meal we had eaten in 7 months. The cook asked what we would like, steak, eggs, etc. I ordered 6 real eggs and a steak. Jack did likewise. Boy, was it ever good. I still remember that meal. Afterwards, we were outfitted with new uniforms, given a pass, and told to report back in 5 days. Jack and I joined 3 other soldiers and spent the time together. Some of those days are fuzzy. After all, we were 20 to 22 years old, and we knew we would be going back to combat. Of the 5 of us, only Jack and I survived to make the rotation back to the States in the summer of 1951. We both had been wounded. I often think of the good times we had in Japan. Later that year, Jack was given a battlefield commission, which meant he had to remain in Korea another 6 months. By the end of February, A Battery was located near the south bank of the Han River, awaiting orders to take part in the recrossing. During this time, we cleaned and performed maintenance on our equipment. Our mail became a little more regular, and the mail clerk, using a Jeep, made daily runs to Division Rear to procure it. He confided in some of the non-commissioned officers that he had found a brewery at the rear and several of the vats were full of beer. So each day, sections would send a water can, 5 gallons, with him to be filled. This lasted a few days until one time he came back empty-handed, telling us that when one vat was emptied, a body had been found. We all denied drinking any of the beer. I think maybe I threw up. I convinced myself that he was lying. Early one morning, the battery commander sent me and a driver to the rear with instructions to find a barber and bring him back to A Battery to cut hair. We returned an hour or so later without a barber, explaining that none would come with us. The commander was upset. He told the driver to stay, and he and I would get a barber. We stopped at the first village, found someone we thought was a barber, and the commander pulled out his .45 pistol and commanded him to come with us. He did, and he stayed 2 days cutting hair. As one of the cannoneers said, he got even with us. After all, there's only so much a guy can do with scissors, a comb, and a bad attitude. In March, we recrossed the Han River east of Seoul. The engineers did a great job of building bridges as they ducked rifle and mortar fire. In April, rumors began circulating about rotation to the States and how it would affect each of us. About this time, I had my first close contact with a helicopter. An H-13 landed near my maintenance truck with engine problems. I helped the pilot change a spark plug, and away he went. I thought, what a way to fight a war. No foxholes to dig, and a quick way out if need be. In 1955, I applied for and was accepted for pilot training. I flew for the next 30 years, military and commercial. Replacements had started arriving in larger numbers, and rotation to the States grew closer. At one point, A Battery had been down to 70 soldiers. We had left Japan full strength with 105 men. So we had lost 35 to death, wounds, frozen feet, and sickness. In early May, an offensive was jumped off to regain the ground up to the 38th parallel. A Battery, of course, provided artillery fire for this push north. One afternoon, an artillery unit behind us was firing a variable fuse mission. This is where the shell explodes close to an object prior to hitting the ground when enemy troops are in the open or among the trees. It does a great job. Anyway, a single cloud was above our position and a round exploded, raining down shrapnel in a wide area. Fortunately, there were no friendly fire casualties that day. I remembered the bomber just missing us when we first set up in Korea months before. Once again, A Battery was lucky. In early June, rotation became a reality. I was among the first to leave. I got a point for every month overseas, January 1949 to June 1951, 29 points. And Purple Heart recipients got an additional point, so 30 was my score, enough to rotate. We first went to a replacement depot, sleeping in tents on straw, and then boarded a ship for Japan, and then to the USA, landing at Seattle in late June 1951.